Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Spotlight episode here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. Many of you know me as the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill. And joining me today is a very special guest I am super excited to have here on the show. Now, my guest today was born and reared in Southern California, and she served in the Air Force before graduating from the University of North Georgia with a degree in education. Moving back to California, she completed her master's degree at Cal State Long Beach. Traveling, skiing, and scuba diving are her favorite pastimes, and she is a retired high school science teacher and currently resides in Huntington Beach, California. She's also written two books, one of which is called A Very Fine House, which explores a journey of coming of age in a world coming apart from the seams, set in 1972. Her second novel, The Caregiver, is currently in the works and has been accepted for publication. This book delves into the complicated relationships within a family as an elderly woman enters the end of her life stages. And I am so excited again to have this person on the show because, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's give a huge round of applause to our very special guest today, author and owner of local indie co-op, Rose Molina. Rose, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, Rose. I am so excited to have you here on the show. And as a little teaser for our episode today, is there a little known fact about you that not a lot of people may know about?
Oh, you're asking me to give a little known fact.
Yes.
Well, let's see. I love traveling, and I like going to places that are active. So I like to scuba dive, and I've been to many places underwater and seen many great things underwater. And I don't know if that's a little known fact, but that's something that I really enjoy doing.
Awesome, Rose. And then, kind of as mentioned in your bio, you have two books. One of which, your second one, is currently in production and being accepted for publication. Very, very exciting. And I was wondering if you can give us a little bit more about both of them. Of course, for your second one, you don't have to give us too much. You can keep a little bit secret if you like.
Okay, well, the second book, The Caregiver, is about a caregiver for an elderly woman who is approaching the end of life, stages, and she can no longer care for herself. So her four adult children have to find a way to care for her. So they hire the caregiver. I wrote this book reflecting back on the death of my mother recently, and how difficult it is to find at-home caregivers for the elderly. For one reason is because there are so many elderly people in the world today who are living very, very long lives, and there's not a lot of people who want to go into that line of work. So there is a great shortage of people who have the empathy and the patience and the skill to care for the elderly. So as I was going through that with my mother, I realized that I was really venting a lot to the caregiver. I was sharing a lot of my stories, having grown up, in my family, and it was almost like a joke that I come to see the caregiver for my own emotional outlet. And I thought, you know what, that's probably not uncommon. And so I thought I'll write a book about what families go through when their elderly parents are approaching those end of life stages, and how so many people come into the picture. Not only the caregiver, but we had the physical therapist coming to the house on a regular basis. We had the nurse coming to the house on a regular basis. And then toward the end, of course, we had the hospice people coming to the house on a regular basis. And I realized that there is a need for people to share those experiences. Myself, I'm a baby boomer, And many of my friends who are in their 60s are also experiencing the death of their parent, their mother or their father. And there needs to be an outlet. There needs to be something that says you're not alone. You're not the only one going through this. A lot of us are. And then share not only the sad times, but the good times as well. The family coming together to help the loved one pass on and reflect back on growing up with that person.
Absolutely. And well said, Rose. Well said. And I think a lot of people will definitely resonate with this book. And it actually reminds me of another book very similar that I actually talked with another good friend on the show, Helen GK, who wrote something very similar about her family. And it was, in a way, in her own words, I remember saying it was a very difficult process because it forced her to, in some cases, look back at those memories that were very, very difficult, but also remembering the fond memories that she had with one of her parents. And I was wondering, for you, when you were writing this book, how did that make you feel, not just as a person, but also as a writer who could be writing something that could help potentially another person going through something very similar?
Well, I drew on a lot of my own experiences, and to come up with the stories and the events that happen in the lives of these four adults, helping their mother pass on. And as a writer, it becomes very difficult to try to keep the emotions separate for each character. So, one of the characters did not have a very good relationship with her mother. It was very awkward for her to be caring and helpful, but her brothers or her sisters had a different relationship with the mother. They had a more loving relationship. And so as a writer, you have to keep those personalities separate, and you have to develop each character from their own point of view, which, sometimes they kind of start to merge together, and you realize, okay, wait, no, this brother would never have said that. That would be something that this sibling would probably have said or done. And so that does become a little bit difficult. And then I also wrote, the story takes place during the COVID pandemic. And so now I had to go back and say, okay, when were the mask mandates? When did places start opening up? Caring for a woman who's in the end of life stages, and having to protect her from COVID with these other people coming into the home now, as I mentioned earlier, the nurse and the therapist and stuff. It becomes quite difficult to keep it all organized. You have to do a lot of research chronologically to make everything fit.
Absolutely. Very, very true. Now, going back to your first book, A Very Fine House, as you were writing that book, did you notice a change in your writing when you were writing The Caregiver? And what did you really learn about the writing process when becoming an indie author yourself? What did you learn?
Oh my gosh, the learning curve was huge. So with my first book, I had been thinking about that story for decades. I mean, literally 30 or 40 years. I've been thinking I should write a book about this experience I had when I was a little kid. Well, not a little kid, an adolescent, 13, 14 years old. And then I realized, you know what, I can do this. I can sit down and I can write this story. And there were a lot of false starts. It wasn't until I found my critique group that was so motivating, to have other people look at my work and tell me, yeah, this is really good. Because there's a lot of self-doubt, and I think creative endeavor, is this good? Are people going to like it? Am I wasting my time? So when my critique group was saying, yeah, this part was really good. I think you need to work on this, but I really enjoyed this. I can't wait to read your next chapter. I would come home just so, hyped. It's like, oh, they like it. I'm good. I can do this. And so that book took me, after thinking about it for decades, it took me a year, start to finish, to get a finished product, a finished work that I felt, okay, now I can start trying to sell this. So yeah, in writing, there's just so much to learn. Point of view, that was one of the criticisms a lot of my group has, like, okay, this is your character, you're in her head, how could you possibly know what her friend is thinking? You can't, just like in real life. And I thought, oh, okay, I gotta back up and realize I have to show what she's thinking by how she moves, her facial expressions, comments she makes, dialogue. And that again was a learning experience. My degree is in history, not in English, although I taught English for a while. So I didn't have those automatic, that knowledge base that someone who is trained as a literature or communications major would have. I had to learn that all on my own, which may be a good thing or a bad thing. I mean, people don't talk grammatically correct. So when I make my dialogue, I wrote it like they would say it. And if it's grammatically incorrect, well, that's how people talk. So that makes it, pretty authentic.
Absolutely. Very true. Very true, Rose.
Yeah. So, and then again, so my first book is set in 1971, 1972. So again, I had to go back and I had to research what is going on during this period of time that the characters can relate to. So in A Very Fine House, it's set in 1971, 72, as I said, and the girls are 13, 14 years old. They're starting to realize what's going on in the world. And back in those days, the Vietnam War was constantly on the news every night. I mean, that's what you could expect. There was who's running for president, the Vietnam War, number of casualties as of to date, and then the protests that are going on. I mean, that was just, I thought that life was normal. That's how everything was. So my characters have that same level of ignorance of the world, but they're forced to have to face that and learn what is going on in the world and what's going on in their country and how it affects them personally. And so in the book, it's a coming of age story that's unique, I think, because of the time period. Not only do they have to learn how to become adults and how to interact with the opposite sex and dating world, but they've got a war going on. There's a drug epidemic going on. There's changing of social norms. The women's movement is going on, and these poor kids have to deal with all that. In addition, one of the girls comes from a Hispanic family, so now she's got the cultural mores to deal with as well. As a high school teacher, I learned that had not gone away from when I experienced it in the 70s. Kids from immigrant cultures, from minority cultures, grow up. They're being raised in that culture in their home, but when they go to school, they're exposed to a completely different set of values. And my Hispanic girls, for the most part, were being very sheltered. They were not allowed to go to the prom because they had to be chaperoned or couldn't spend the night at a friend's. I tried to get one of my students to go to an event at UCI where they were going to stay in the dorms. And this girl is brilliant. I mean, she definitely was college bound. She was going to do great things, but her parents wouldn't let her because Hispanic girls do not spend nights in the dorm. They spend nights with their parents. And so it was me and a few of my other colleagues worked so hard to try to convince this family that it was okay. Their daughter was going to be safe. She wasn't going to be exposed to, the terrible American culture that didn't respect, the sanctity of womanhood. And then what I learned was that it's not just a Hispanic culture. The Islamic culture is the same way with the girls, with the daughters. They're not allowed to experience a lot of American culture. So in writing my book, I wanted that to be something that girls could understand. It's not just you. It's not
Mm.
just your family. It's not just the way you're being raised. It's something that exists in the world, and you can you can respect your home culture, you can respect your home religion, but you can also function in American society without violating your family's values.
That's a very powerful message, Rose. That is a very, very good and positive message, too. So, would you say ultimately for that book in particular, and you can also look at the caregiver and its own themes and what it's trying to tell, that the goals you had initially in the beginning for each book has stayed true to from start to finish?
Yeah, they grew, they developed. You know what? So with Very Fine House, with the girls coming of age and experiencing these things, it was very beneficial to me. I was delighted to find out that in 19 okay, so this is a book where they have to go out and explore different cultures, different races, different ways of thinking. So in 1972, the very first Black woman to try to get the nomination for a major political party, Shirley Chisholm,
Mm-hmm.
was out there doing these things. And the thought, I remember actually specifically when I was in the 8th grade, we were studying about the presidency, and one of the teacher said, well, could I run for president? And one of the kids said, no, you're not a boy, you can't run for president. And then we have, whoa, this woman, a Black woman, is really doing really well. I mean, she's not going to get the Democratic nomination, obviously, but she's doing really well. People know who she is. And regardless of whether she's going to win or not, she's out there making an effort. She is trying. And that's what I wanted my characters in the story to learn, that yes, even though the odds are against you and you probably will fail, that shouldn't stop you from trying to achieve whatever it is you're looking for.
Absolutely. Again, a very good message, Rose. A very good message. Now, kind of going back to a little bit in the beginning, as we talked about how when you would share your progress with your fellow writers, I've always noticed, and I think it is important to talk about that for authors, whether you are hybrid, indie, or traditional, collaboration is key and essential to help grow in the industry and to pretty much help one another. So I'm very curious, how did local indie author co-op come about?
So my book is hybrid published. But even if it wasn't, even if it was a traditionally published books, authors go to book fairs, author events to promote their books. And this costs money to do that. When you go to a vendor's market or craft show or something, people have to pay for that space. So I was going to these things, paying my fees, and maybe sometimes I'd break even, but usually it was at a loss. So I thought, okay, being an economics teacher, high school economics teacher, I thought what I need to do is reduce my costs. How can I do that? Well, I could spread it out. So I invited a friend of mine to share my table space with me, and he agreed. So now all of a sudden my $100 fee for the day gets cut in half. And it worked out pretty well because people would come to look at his book, and then I'm sitting right there with my book, and we can kind of promote each other. So I thought, okay, well, instead of just having the one person, let me open this up to other people that I know. Because, since I've now been promoting my book, I've gotten to know a lot of other indie authors. So I asked a few more people if they wanted to join in, and the response was overwhelming. I have a list of, 20 indie authors now who at various times say, yeah, I'll come and share your space and pick up half the cost. And it's really gone above and beyond what I thought it would be. I've got so many people now. When I was at the Los Angeles Times Festival of
Mhm.
Books, walking around trying to promote my book, and I had the sign on our booth that said local indie author co-op. More people were coming up to me and asking me for information on the group than on my book. And that's good, because one of the rules, so we're not a nonprofit or anything. We're just a private group. We don't, there's no membership fees. We just promote each other. So the more people I have, the more we can promote each other. So if I see a book on a Facebook feed or Instagram that's one of my authors, I give it a thumbs up. I'm working my way through reading the books that our authors have written, writing reviews. So it's the way for us independent authors to compete against the big giant publishing houses. We don't have a publishing budget. All we have is face-to-face communication with our readers, and this is a way to do it at something that's not cost prohibitive.
Absolutely. And I also want to take a moment to just say that a huge thank you to you, Rose, and to all the other authors of Local Indie Author Co-op, because I don't think I've ever would have gone to the Festival of Books as a fellow vendor author had it not been for the pamphlet you guys sent out and just doing everything, the lead up to it. And it was such an amazing experience getting a chance to meet you, Amanda, and many other authors at that booth and for the rest of the whole day. And it was just so awesome, that experience, that I will never ever forget that. And I look forward to tailing with you guys again for the foreseeing future, because ultimately for us as authors, you're absolutely right that it is a little difficult to market our books, whether we are hybrid indie or maybe even small press authors, to go against the bigger publishers. It's very, very, very difficult. And I know we're not in competition with our fellow authors, no, absolutely not, but it is a bit of a challenge if you are on the small side. So it does help when you're part of a big group of local authors that are here collectively to promote and share our works and some support our fellow authors' works. It's just absolutely incredible and an amazing thing that you guys are doing. And I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you. Yes. And I wouldn't have met you, if not for looking for people to come and share that space with us. It makes me feel like I'm helping the community, I'm helping the cause, I'm helping other writers, and we all have different genres. So it's not like we're competing with each other that way, because we can promote our books. But then if I meet someone and they're like, yeah, no, I like, adventure stories, I go, oh, well, guess what? My friend right next to me right here, her book's on adventure stories, or my friend on the other side, this writer specializes in romance novels, or you know what I'm talking about, the different ways we can promote each other. And I think it bears more weight for a reader when you have an author promoting another author. It's not just reading reviews on Facebook.
Yes, 100%. It is absolutely true. When another author is supporting a fellow author, it's as you said, you're helping promote the community, helping promote writers and readers alike, making those connections and networking. And I think it's also a very important thing to talk about a little bit, is that for authors who go to events, I know the big thing that we all try to do is to make a sale. But I think we can all agree financially, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rose, that 9 times out of 10, you may break even. But in most cases, you might not, break even. But the biggest thing when going to festivals is not only to make money and sell, make a profit, but it's also to make those collaborations and connections with people who are looking for their next read, because word of mouth is a huge asset for authors.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I'm with my friends and, hey, what, read any good books lately? And their eyes light up and said, oh yes, I just read this book, it was so good. Well, that's the book I'm going to buy. I'm going to go, and I'm going to go to bookshop.org that supports local indie bookshops, or I'm going to go to my neighborhood bookshop and I'm going to order that book, and that's what I'm going to read. It's tremendously important to do that, and then especially with books that have a purpose. They have
Mhm.
a lesson to them, where I want to convey this message in a positive way by telling a story. I think that's really important for people to know that that's what this book is going to do.
Yes, and I think at the end of the day, for all of us authors, no matter what genre we write, whether it's action, adventure, fantasy, thriller, mystery, romance, we all want to tell a story and convey some form of message that's going to hook the reader in, and ultimately offer them a form of escapism from reality, if just for a little bit. And I think, again, a huge praise to you guys, because again, had I not, met you and everyone else and meeting those incredible, amazing authors and just people, I don't think I would have ever also had a chance to connect with a lot of people that I have known virtually, but now got the chance to meet in person for the very first time. And it is a memory that I will never forget. And Rose, as we wrap up this incredible spotlight, ultimately, what do you want people to not only take away from you as an author and how you craft stories, but ultimately, what will be your word of wisdom to fellow authors who are either looking to connect, network, or maybe think of going to their first event to promote their works?
Well, a good author is going to be an avid reader. So you need to read books that are not only what you like to read, but other genres as well, so that you get a feeling for what's out there, for what people want. And then as far as going to the promoting your book at book fairs and those types of events, to understand that you have to sell your book. A lot of our authors will sit behind their table and expect the customers to come to them, and that's not going to happen. You have
Mm,
to be up with a smile on your face and engaging people and talking to them about why they should put out the money to buy your book. There are so, I mean, literally, I remember hearing some statistics somewhere that there's 1 million books published every year. I mean, that's that's a lot. That's a lot of books, right? Um,
yes.
and so you have to make yours stand out above the other books, right, in order to sell them. And you want your book to convey a message, and you want that message to resonate with your reader, and you want your reader to be so engaged in what you wrote that they promote it to their friends and so on. um, you're I've realized that writing for me is not going to be something that's going to make me a lot of money. In fact,
Mhm.
I spend more in promoting than I do in making money. But as I said before, I feel like I'm giving back to the community. I'm giving a voice to the people who don't have one, and I'm sending a message that I'm hoping people will think about. And in thinking about it, it might spur some action to make the world a better place. Um, so yeah. So when you go as an author, when you go to these things, people are not going to come lined up at your table wanting to read your book. You need to engage with them. You need to um, show how they want to buy your book.
Well said, Rose. Well said. And on that note, viewers and listeners, we conclude another episode of the Spotlight series here on Tales from the Wandering Scribe. I want to give a huge thank you to Rose Molina for coming on the show. It's all about her books and a little bit about local indie author co-op. Now, Rose, where can people find you on social media if they want to connect, as well as buy a copy of your first book and pre-order for the second book? And are there any other events that local indie author co-op will be going to in the foreseeable future of this year?
Yes, you can go to my website, is rosemolinabooks.com. That's ROSEMOLINA books.com. And there you can contact me. I'm also on Facebook under A Very Fine House, which is the title of my book. We do have an event that we will be attending at the Huntington Beach Public Library this Saturday. They are having their very first Author Fest. So I did put that out on our my email list of local authors. And then also the Orange County Book Fair in Tustin has just opened up their author applications to attend that. That's a selective event where you apply and then you just cross your fingers and hope they pick you to come attend. Other than that, then the next big thing that's coming up will be the Belmont Shore book fair, but that's usually not until October.
Yes, that is absolutely true. I will link all those down below in the description of this video, viewers and listeners. Again, thank you so much for joining us for an incredible episode here of the Spotlight series. A huge thank you to Rose for coming on the show. We wish her the very best. And if you'd like to see Rose back on the show in a full-length author interview to talk more about either her first book, her second book, or a mixture of both, you know what you have to do. Like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill, signing out. Wish you all a wonderful day wherever you are in the world. Happy Tuesday, everybody, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Take care. Have a wonderful day.